Welcome to the K-State Insiders, your Kansas State sports show. Now, let's head into the studio.
Welcome to the Insiders. I am Fitz, that is Gills, and Coach Joe Bob Clements, former Kansas State defensive end, in my studio, because someone in the planning of tonight's show forgot to tell Brant Hanley we were going at 6. I'm not going to blame the person who made this mistake, because I don't like to call out mistakes on the air, particularly when they're mine. So we'll just effort on with the three of us in a very blown out studio cam. Coach, you watched that game with great interest, I'm sure.
I did.
Just give me your thoughts on how the game went, and we'll kind of dig into the whole what this game means as we go here.
Well, I thought K-State played with a lot of enthusiasm and passion. A little nervous the way it started, but that can kind of be expected in a sloppy rain-type game like that. But I thought they played hard, and they executed well, and they took care of business.
They did. What is, as a former player and a coach, and you've spent time on the other sideline, what's this game mean? I mean, every year, K-State at press conferences, oh, it's just another game. It's a game, the next game on our schedule. Then after the game, it's like it was the biggest game ever when they got kicked some more ass. It's just hysterical. It's like, oh, it's not that important. Then after the game, yeah, we were really motivated. We were fired up. But what's this whole rivalry mean?
Oh, it means a lot, especially if you're from the state of Kansas, and after guys spend a little while probably on both teams. It means a lot. A lot of bragging rights go into it, and just every time you win that game, you have a whole nother year of being the winners of the Sunflower Showdown.
Yeah, it's a remarkable streak. It really is. Gills, you were there. I was right here. It looks like I'm doing a haunted house thing tonight. That had to be kind of incredible to watch in person, to see how the air just came out of the stadium as the game went.
Mm-hmm. And you thought it might go the complete opposite way.
I did.
Joe Bob mentioned, with especially that opening kickoff, you're thinking, all right, here we go. And maybe to continue off of what you were saying, Kansas State, if Kansas State had beaten Iowa State, who knows? Maybe we get the exact reaction, the same type of spark and fire that Kleiman had in the post-game presser. Who knows? Maybe. But it feels like there was a lot more importance placed on this game than there was with that game to open up the season. In hindsight, I wish if we could go back, I'm sure that maybe Kleiman wishes that he had his team ready to go in Dublin for that game. It just didn't seem like they were prepared for that one game. That was probably, your second biggest game of the season, rival, national stage, you name all those things. You can't change it, though. Here we are, K-State's up to 500. Fitz, I was looking at the old numbers for K-State to make a bowl game, the percentage, the projections, right? It was in the lower 20s, according to ESPN, after the 1-3 start. Now it's up in the 80s. We all picked them to not make a bowl game during the first bye week. I think all of our answers are going to change here if we were to do that right now. So a nice turnaround of the season, better late than never to start not winning, but dominating in your games.
Yeah, it was impressive. And Joe Bob, as a coach, when you come off a big victory, whether it's a rival or maybe an upset, just a notable victory, how hard is it to get the team to kind of shift gears by Monday and start focusing on the task at hand?
Oh, I don't think it's difficult, because I think anytime you have a team that is playing well and feel good about themselves, they're actually easier to coach. They're more conducive to taking hard coaching and wanting to get better and wanting to do well. And I haven't had a chance to watch all of Kansas State the entire season, but I felt like from a little bit I saw them at ECU, they played a good game then. Obviously played a good game this last weekend, and against Baylor they didn't play horrible. They just couldn't finish it right there at the end. So I think the momentum's on their side right now to really do some good things.
Yeah, it's amazing how your momentum can change, and you were a part of that a few years ago when Oklahoma State went to the title game, was kind of dead in the water, and then ended up making an incredible push. What changed on that team that all of a sudden things clicked?
Just you win one and you start stacking wins, and kids just start believing in themselves a little more. The energy level raises a little bit more, and once that energy level and the belief raises, the level of play generally increases, and you see guys making the big time plays that they might not have made when they didn't have that belief.
That's pretty interesting because I had all but given up on this team. I didn't see any signs of life, and now they look really focused. I mean, they look like this is a totally different team. I don't understand how they go from one end of the spectrum to what we've seen now 2 games in a row.
Yeah, you mentioned the word focus, Fitz. Kleiman mentioned on Monday the explosive plays. K-State was able to get, I think he said 10 of those on offense, but really on defense, Kansas State, I mean, there was a number of missed tackles by Austin Romaine, and, he's playing out there with a club on his hand. So you don't want to necessarily be too harsh on him. But other than that, like, there was no home runs really hit by that KU team. Their biggest home run was probably the Nuremberg fumble, right? So
yeah.
Focus, I mean, those giving up those big plays is a lack of focus, which can spread to being a lack of execution, lack of whatever. If you're focused, you're not giving up those big plays, bottom line. So it's a much different team, Fitz, than what we saw earlier in the year. It's not even a much different team, Fitz. You mentioned on the post-game podcast with Big B, you said it was the Titanic was sinking, the Titanic was nearing the iceberg, right? You're wrong on that. The iceberg got hit in Kansas State. The ship was sinking, and Chris Kleiman, to his staff, to their credit, they got everybody off. They had enough lifeboats, and this is a brand new team that we saw from what we saw earlier in the season. It's not the same type of football.
Totally aside, if we were in a shipwreck in ICCs, you'd share the door with me, right? I could climb on the door with you. You wouldn't say, "See you, Jack," and shove my head underwater.
Maybe for a little bit, but I'll bring you back up.
I've seen that movie too often. Coach, first of all, give everyone an update on what you're doing. You're just sitting around watching football, aren't you?
Pretty much. Yeah, I'm on my year-long sabbatical. Hopefully that ends here next month or so. A lot of working out, a lot of yard work. Today I fixed a flat tire in a tractor. Watching a bunch of football on Saturdays. I figured out how to do that thing on my TV where I can get 4 games going at once.
Oh, yeah.
And change which one I'm listening to. Drives my wife crazy, but I'm enjoying it. And I got little projects I do on my own, studying different concepts, and just kind of spending time with family, trying to enjoy it the best I can.
How's your wife handling you being around all the time?
I think she's ready for me to get back to work.
Yeah, it's my experience. A coach's wife kind of gets used to you not being around, and I think the secret to a successful marriage is not be around each other that often.
We kind of have our own schedule. She goes and has her coffee in the morning, and she gets home. That's about the time I leave to go work out, and so we try to stay not hit by hit, side by side the entire day.
So you mentioned defensive concepts. K-State went to the 3-man front that we saw across the Big 12 for a while, and now they've reverted back to the 4-man front that Chris Kleiman prefers. What are the strengths and benefits of each of those schemes in terms of how it fits into the Big 12?
The 3-man front, really evolved with Iowa State.
Yep.
And obviously they've had a tremendous amount of success with it, and it creates difficulties for the spread offenses because it's hard to ID the coverages, and there's just so many flies out there. There's just so many bodies out there in the quarterback's vision. He doesn't necessarily know where he wants to go with the ball. And you like to think you can run against it, but if the guys on defense have their eyes in the right place and they trigger fast, it's pretty deadly against the run. I think you've seen a lot of the Big 12 go to more 12 personnel, putting 2 tight ends on the field to kind of combat it. Not everybody's as spread as they used to be, but it's a good defense. It kind of depends on the personnel you have. I mean, 4 down front, you get 4 hands in the dirt, and they can be aggressive and kind of control the offensive line and cause a little bit more disruption. But you got to have those cats to be able to do that too.
Yeah. I personally think they haven't had the great personnel for that second tackle spot. But
Yeah.
Malcolm Alcorn Crowder to Gills, he was at the press conference today, and he has emerged into one hell of a defensive tackle. He's big and mobile. They kept saying he would be, but it felt like one of those lies coaches, just like Joe Bob, tell us that this player is going to eventually be really good. And when he knows he's not going to be, but he wants to say nice things, but he is really good, isn't he?
He's big. He's
a big human
big guy. And I love Damian Alalio. With all due respect to him, they're two different maybe types of tackles, right? I mean, that is a huge dude. Great guy. I mean, that's the first time I've really ever got to speak with him. I assume that was probably your first time too, Fitz.
Yeah.
He, from what it sounds like, he was just a sponge, right? In the time that he maybe was not playing, and took the criticism from the leader in the room, Damian Alalio, and Uso's obviously got some wisdom and maybe just some energy to be around that he was able to soak up. And yeah, he's not a difference maker on defense, but got his first sack against KU and said he kind of blacked out in that moment. But I think for his next sack, knock on wood, he'll have a celebration ready to go and maybe be more prepared for that moment, right?
Well, I'm sure a lot of K-Staters blacked out. It mostly came after the game, though, not during the game. Joe Bob, what jumped out to you about how K-State was defending Jalen Daniels, and why was it so effective?
To be honest with you, I can't answer why it was effective. I just know they did a great job of containing him. I mean, he's a dynamic football player. He can go the distance on you at any moment, but they seem to do a good job of getting pressure on him and keeping him corralled and not letting him break loose. And then when he was trying to throw the ball, the throws were contested, and he wasn't able to sit back there all day.
Yeah, it was that was the biggest thing that I didn't see coming, Gills. I didn't think they'd rattled Jalen Daniels like that. He's been pretty good this year. Mm-hmm. And he was removed from the game mentally at one point.
Yeah, and going back to earlier, the explosive plays after a bye week, I think in the back of my mind, there's going to be one or two of those home runs that KU's able to hit, and that wasn't the case. Kansas State got to him. Was it 4 sacks, I believe? They got to Daniels, and so on both sides, though, on the other end, Avery didn't get sacked once. So complimentary football, Fitz, we've talked about this a ton on the show over the last number of weeks. That's K-State football. I know the special teams wasn't there, hasn't been, but defensively, you're looking at a team that leads power conferences in turnovers, and then offensively, I'm sure we can get into that here soon, but all two phases, offense, defense, were really good in that game. But yeah, they got to Daniels. They really did, and that was maybe his worst game. I don't want to come across as, we're K-State show, we're going to bash him, but we followed KU a little bit over the years. That was a poor performance from Daniels, and I'm sure he would tell you that. Yeah,
it was. They really got after him. And Joe Bob, nobody ran the ball in this game very well. It was kind of funny. It's like everyone was supposed to be able to run the ball, and nobody ran the ball. But
in a rain game, you'd kind of expect that. I was kind of a little nervous at the rain because I know K-State hadn't had the most success running the ball. But yeah, you expect in a rain game that both teams would lie heavy on the run, but they stuck to who they are and were slinging it around.
It was crazy to watch. As a coach, when you see what happened to K-State on that opening kickoff, just boom, sudden change, all of a sudden you're not getting the ball and the other team is inside your red zone. What do you tell your team at that point?
You just got to keep plugging away. You can't allow one play to affect the next play. Every play has a life of its own. And just because you do great on one play or bad on one play, it can't affect the next play in front of you. So you just got to put your head down and focus on that very next play. That's the most important thing going on, and take care of your job in that particular moment.
Yeah, in case they did, Gills. First of all, I think Chris Kleiman's right. I don't think he got in the end zone, but there was just no way. Once it was called that way on the field, there was no way to overturn it from the camera angles. TNT did a lot of really good things. They might want a goal line camera because it came up multiple times in that game where needed a goal line shot. But I would have sworn from the team I saw earlier this year, that'd have been almost game over for them.
Yep. And the team you saw.
It was just the opposite.
Yeah.
It just almost pissed them off, and they just went down the field and then got their own turnover and changed the whole game.
Team you saw in Provo last season.
Yeah.
If that happens to open up that game, you're done, right? We saw it later in the first half when things came unraveled, but that's, you can say what you want about the, special teams didn't necessarily have a blunder after that, and the defense didn't give up the big play. A lot of that's Avery Johnson. And, Johnson mentioned that post game in Lawrence after it happened, that he was there for Bryce Nornberg. And that's the sign of a leader. He hasn't had a perfect season, but him with his arm has been, in Lawrence, that was about as close to perfect maybe as you're going to get. He missed Jerron Tibbs. I know that people have talked about that. That was probably a touchdown, right?
It was, yeah.
If he's there. But you know what? The throws that he did make, especially downfield, were NFL level throws. I've said early in the season when Avery Johnson was not aggressive, he wasn't good enough with his arm just to neglect that ground game. Right now, if Avery Johnson doesn't want to run the football a whole lot and wants to just rely on his arm, I'm fine. He's proven over these last couple of weeks. Go back to Baylor, TCU. He is throwing the ball at a very high level to where he doesn't need to run and pick up first downs left and right.
Joe Bob, how much have you watched Avery, and give me your thoughts on Avery Johnson?
I wouldn't say I've watched him a lot. I try to bounce around between a lot of football games. I did feel like this game, though, that he took the ball and ran it a couple of times and made some critical yardage when they needed him. I thought I saw some gutsy runs out of him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't want what I said to come across as he didn't, but if he doesn't, you can still rely on that arm, right?
Yeah. I told Chris Kleiman this today. It's like you look at the stats and nothing jumps out at you about Avery's stats, but you go back and think he just did everything he needed to do and efficiently and protected the ball. It was, I think it was a big performance mentally, probably, for Avery Johnson. Also, Gills, can this team survive with this running game? I think it's going to catch up real soon.
Yeah, you do lack the maybe explosiveness from Dylan Edwards, but Joe Jackson's been able to maybe hold down the fort. That's probably the best way to put it. But against Texas Tech, especially that front, I don't know if just getting by is going to be good enough against the Red Raiders. You're going to have those explosive. I don't know if you want to get Jace Brown back there. I don't know if you want to turn things up with Avery on the ground, but Joe Jackson's been fine. Devon Rice can pitch in. It's been okay. But when you're having Avery Johnson sling it the way he did, you didn't need the ground game to step up. It's gonna need to be better on Saturday, no doubt about that.
I agree. Coach, you've watched a lot of football. How much time have you watched Texas Tech this year?
Watched them a handful of times. They're a good football team.
I've been comparing them to any Oklahoma, Texas team in the heyday, talent-wise.
Probably not man for man as talented as those teams, but their front is dangerous. And that linebacker they got number 10, Rodriguez. He's a playmaker and he's tough. And they seem like they got some pretty good speed and length in the secondary. They play some good defense.
It really is impressive. They did the NIL right. They went out and bought the big guys.
Yeah,
they went out and found defensive and offensive linemen, and I think I'm shocked they lost even with a quarterback injury, but I think it was money well spent. They're just dominating up front, and it's going to be a big problem for Kansas State.
They greatly enhanced their offense by improving their offensive line. That was probably the thing that held them back last year more than anything. They had that really good running back, Taj Brooks, and he kind of did everything on his own. But they enhanced their team with their offensive line. They enhanced their team with those wide receivers, and they definitely enhanced their team with what they got on defense.
Yeah, they did. It's really impressive. Okay, so at some point, you became old school. I don't make the rules, man. I was told today you're an old coach. I don't know. I'm like, no, I covered him. You can't be old.
I turned 50 next month. I don't feel old, but
yeah, I was going to say you're Hanley's age. How hard is this to deal with? We're just talking casually about Texas Tech bought a team. which is perfectly legal. I'm not saying it's bad. It's just weird to say.
It's a different landscape now. And now that the genie's out of the bottle, you're not putting it back in. They keep trying to come up with rules and things, and I try to follow it as well as I can. I still don't have a grasp on what the actual legalities are of what's legal and not legal. It's just a different landscape, and I kind of agree what I think as Coach Saban mentioned. If you buy the wrong guys, you're up shit creek. So I think money's important, but you still got to be able to evaluate the right players, because you spend a bunch of money on the wrong guy. Well, that's money that could have been spent elsewhere on guys that can help you win.
Yeah, Gills, this is crazy. And plus I think K-State might be a cautionary tale that you have to go out and add some pieces that really make a difference, because everyone seems to do it that is having good seasons.
Joe Bob, I want to ask you, you said maybe man for man, this team doesn't add up or go with those old OU and Texas teams, but is the gap the same? Because right now you're seeing most of those top tier athletes going to the Penn States, Alabamas, Georgias, right? I don't know if there's as many of those types of players at K-State, Arizona State, Iowa State.
Yeah, no, I would say the gap is different. I think it's gotten a lot wider between the haves and the have-nots. That some of those other schools are able to stockpile a lot of high level talented football players. But it still comes down to getting the right pieces and guys that can buy into the system and buy into the culture and buy into themselves and kind of come together as a unit. Because the great thing about football, it takes 11. There's 11 guys on the field, and if one guy's not doing his job or not able to execute his job, you got problems.
I agree.
Joe Bob, Kansas State defensively, they look like they're doing some things on the back end right now that are confusing quarterbacks. This was the second straight game in which quarterbacks just didn't look comfortable. I don't know if you watched that at all, but what can you say about how they're handling the passing game right now?
It looked like they were creating some problems with the way they're rotating their secondary. They're showing one look and going to another. It looked like they were rolling to the boundary into the field a little bit and just changing whether they were single high or quarters or cover two type concept, and just they were doing it. It felt like they were trying to keep the shell the same for the quarterback. It looked the same to Daniels pre-snap every time. And I thought they did a good job of showing pressure and coming out of it, and looked like they did some not fire zones, but the simulated pressures where they're only rushing 4, but dropping out a defensive lineman and still playing coverage behind it, just enough to keep him off balance to where he couldn't execute on time.
Looks like we have a question here for JBC. What do you think about the impact of reduced roster sizes, fewer walk-ons on competitiveness of schools such as K-State and Oklahoma State? Thanks, Eric.
I think it's a travesty. I think that was a business decision through administration, and you're just the people getting hurt in all this are your high school football players. You think that they would create openings for them to go, maybe create more openings for them to go to lower levels, but that's not actually the case either, because lower levels are hitting the portal just like anybody else, and it's like high school recruiting is kind of becoming an afterthought, unfortunately. In the way they're doing the recruiting calendar, it's my understanding that December is now a dead period, so you can't get out on the road and recruit. January, that's when the portal opens. Well, if you're looking to sign portal kids, you're not going to be on the road very much in January, because you're going to have visitors in, every day of the month, trying to fill your roster. So it's the fact that the day and age of just the glorified hard work and walk on is kind of sad. You just look at Kansas State, the B.J. Finney's, the John McGraw's, the Jordy Nelsons. You can go on and on and on. And And moving forward to this day and age, those guys might not have had an opportunity to play or had an opportunity to get on the team.
Yeah. I think that affected K-State early too. Without those 20 extra walk-ons, all kids that probably grew up K-State fans, showing how much it means to, be a Wildcat in practice. I think that made a difference in the culture of the team. They lost something there that was maybe a little bit more important than what anyone had really understood.
Oh yeah. Yeah. You look at the way Coach Snyder did it way back, that's what I'm most familiar with. We relied on that you'd recruit high school football players, but really you made most of your money on your junior college transfers and your walk-ons that got developed into being something.
Mm-hmm.
Who do you think, Fitz? Do you remember when Kleiman mentioned during the first bye week, guys weren't celebrating good plays enough and just being happy for each other? Who's doing that the most traditionally through K-State's program, right? Is it your starting wideout from Florida, with all due respect to Jace Brown, or your walk-on from Kansas who is just doing every little thing he can on special teams scout work just to make a difference with his team?
That's right. Exactly right. It's Curry Sexton.
Yep. That's
you make a play. Curry was right there. I think that's a valid point, Gills. It just means something to him. And I guess K-State's going to have to learn to teach that culture another way, because you're not going to have walk-ons anytime soon. Just NCAA is in a position to do that. It really stinks. Joe Bob, overall, give me your overall thoughts on this conference right now. I'm torn between, this is really fun because it's competitive, but I'm not really sure how good the teams are in a national perspective.
It's hard to judge.
Yeah.
And it's like this year's completely different than last year. Now we got Cincinnati's up there towards the top. Houston's up there towards the top. BYU, who wasn't supposed to be towards the top, is still up towards the top. Arizona State was picked last year. They won the conference this year, and they're not struggling right now. They've dropped 2 games, Arizona State, and it makes it a little more chaotic, definitely. Now how it compares to the SEC and the Big Ten. Maybe it compares to the top 2/3 and below. But the top tier of the SEC and the Big Ten, they got a lot of good football players.
Yeah. Physically, there's just a difference. I really thought NIL might even some of that out, but I almost think you have to do it like Tech's doing it. Don't try to get him out of high school. Get him as the second stop. Yeah.
I would say this. I talked to a staff member at Oklahoma State. They're having a rough season. And they just went down to Lubbock and got beat pretty good. And he said that what the information he shared with me is just per person, Texas Tech did not look like Oregon looked. And I put Oregon at kind of upper echelon of the Big Ten, just person per person. They did not look the same.
That's interesting. It really is. Man, I think there's some differences between the conferences, but I don't think anyone from the Big 12 or ACC is going to match the level of elite players they're getting at the top of the Big 10 or SEC. Just based on recruiting areas where a lot of the recruits are, those conferences are going to absolutely dominate for years to come. I don't know how either conference is going to shake out of that mold.
Well, now the conferences have gone nationwide too. Yeah. You can't geographically, it hurts you. You got the ACCs on the East Coast and the West Coast. The Big Ten's on the East Coast and the West Coast. SEC is still technically the same geographically, but they've entered into Oklahoma and Texas. And you used to be able to, at a K-State or an Oklahoma State, used to be able to compete for some of those players in Texas, because you could keep them in the Big 12. And then once A&M left, it kind of opened the door for the SEC to come into Texas. And now that Oklahoma and Texas is in the SEC, it's just opened the floodgates to where you can't use geography in your favor anymore.
Are you plugged in at all what the thinking at Oklahoma State is, where they're going, what direction they're going to go now?
Really not. It's going to be an interesting coaching carousel. I mean, the number of jobs that are open already, and this isn't the end. There's going to be a bunch more, and then it's just going to be a domino effect. When one guy leaves one place to go to another, it's going to be interesting. And I kind of read an article, and I don't know how much I believe in it, but it's a valid point that there's not enough premier coaches available for these premier jobs. Everybody wants to win a national championship, but I think the only head coach in the country that has one under his belt right now that's active is Ryan Day. I could be wrong on that. But I think he's the only one, or I guess Dabo Swinney has one too. Those are only two active coaches, I believe, that have a national championship underneath their belt.
Wow. I hadn't thought of that. That's interesting. Gills, let's wind this up with, do you think K-State bounces back? Do you think K-State, I'm not saying wins, but competes at the same level they have been?
Well, you know me and my NFL betting. If this was an NFL team, right, that in the vacuum of the season, I wouldn't say is outkicking its coverage, but is definitely playing its best brand of football. So I would caution to think that it can keep up, right? It's on film what K-State's doing. I mean, coaches like Joe Bob and, people a lot smarter than me are able to maybe figure out kind of what's going on and just the cycles of the game. On the flip side, though, Kansas State, this is what this team was supposed to be. Mm-hmm. Heading into the year, Texas Tech was not, you didn't have as good as odds betting on them as you did on Kansas State to win the league, right? There's a reason for that. So what's the true K-State football? Was it the first 4 games where everything was abysmal, or is it the last 4 games where K-State's a field goal late away from being unbeaten and truly being a contender in the Big 12? I know there's still a scenario in which crazy things can happen and you can get in, but I that's kind of what it boils down to. Which is the real brand of football? Is it the first 4 games or the last 4 games? Now, of course, the arrow is pointing up. K-State's not going to get blown out in this game or anything like that, but is there going to be a regression to what the mean of this season has been? That's the question that I don't know if I have the answer to yet, but we'll make our predictions later on the week for sure on the site.
Joe Bob, when you got a team that's in this position, I don't know if you've been around a team that struggled so much and then found themselves. The culture just got to be wild to watch the change within the team.
Oh, absolutely. It's been fun. It's been enjoyable. And, I would say this, I mean, K-State's first 4 games, that schedule's brutal. To travel to Ireland and play the other team that's the 2 teams that predict to be the top of the Big 12, travel all the way to Ireland to play that game, then to come back home and play a without a bye week, play a good FCS team in North Dakota. That's not a team you'd ever want to sleep on. And then, oh, by the way, week 3, let's play Army. That's a defensive coach's nightmare. And then let's add another layer to that. Let's go to Arizona on a short week. I mean, that's a brutal schedule. I mean, I when that thing came out, I was astonished. That's not fun.
No, I want to. After the season, I want to ask Chris Kleiman if he'd do it differently now. Take that off week.
I would think so. I think he definitely went awfully coming back from Ireland, or at least one before that Army game.
Yeah, it probably would have helped if they won too, Gills. Just win the first game, and then you'll feel better for the second game.
Yeah.
Yep.
Hindsight's 2020, but the reason you took that bye was or you didn't take the bye was because you wanted to just keep things rolling and keep the shit moving. Well, if K-State would have won those games, it'd be perfectly fine, but it was not pretty coming back, and it didn't get pretty until a month later, but better late than never.
Joe Bob, appreciate it. Stay in touch. I know you will.
Absolutely.
I know you will. Anything I can do for you, I will. Glad you're doing well. Glad you get a little downtime. You're getting old. You need to unwind.
It's old, yeah.
So, Gil, thank you very much. A little bit shorter show tonight, folks. no big B, because I forgot to tell him we're going early, so it's my fault. But we'll be back next week with another edition of the Insiders. Of course, we got the regular podcast, the pregame show, and the walkthrough with Monty Spiller all coming this week. Stay tuned. We're going to have some fun. It's K-State, Texas Tech on Saturday at the Bill.
Thank you for watching the K-State Insiders. This has been a GoPowercat.com and Spirit Street production.